Today's project is the first in a series of Halloween themed cards. There'll be one every day for the next 7 days. I'm working here on a linen texture cardstock and I'm using a piece of Ranger cut and dry foam with Distress ink in Wild Honey. To make the blending as smooth as possible, I tend to pick up ink from the pad and then dab it onto the non-stick craft sheet before taking it over to the card, and I find this way you're less inclined to get an impression from the square shape of the cut and dry foam. Now I'm taking a second colour, this is Seedless Preserves, and again I'm dabbing onto the non-stick craft sheet first and I'm just applying a light coating of the second colour in the centre of the card. To develop the background further, I'm taking a stencil by Mr. Huey's. This is the Circle Graph Mask, and I'm using this again with the Seedless Preserves and a piece of Ranger cut and dry foam. This is a stamp by Stampin' Up. It's quite an old stamp, I'm not sure whether it's still available or not, but it's a stamp I use a lot. It is very small splatters and it can be used to fill in any gaps, and also it can be used to cover up any small mistakes where ink might have got into a place it shouldn't be. The second stamp set that I'm using here is by Stampenders and it's called Halloween Charms, and I've selected a tree branch from this set and I'm using this with VersaFine Onyx Black. From the same set, I've also chosen a spider hanging from a web, and because it's textured card, the spider does not stamp especially well. I didn't want to distort the image, so I didn't press very hard, but I remedy this with a micron pen later in the project. Now I want to add some text to the card, so I've chosen a stamp set by My Mind's Eye. And again, I'm using the VersaFine ink in Onyx Black. This is a die by Cheery Lynn Die called Witch's Laundry, and I've cut this out in black textured cardstock. I'm using Zig two-way glue to adhere it to the card. And I tend to use this quite often with die cuts because it's very quick and easy, especially when you've got very intricate pieces to try and attach. These are some 3mm self-adhesive gems, and I'm just using these for a little bit of extra decoration and to fill in those holes that are part of the die cut at the end of the washing line. And now to edge the card and give it a border, I'm using the VersaFine ink in Onyx Black with a piece of Ranger Cut and Dry foam. This is a Micron pen by Sakura, and as mentioned earlier, I'm using this to add detail to the spiders and other areas of stamping that did not stamp especially well over the textured cardstock. Next, I want to assemble the card, and I've chosen to layer the main image onto two different textured cardstocks. The first is the black textured cardstock that was used for the Cheery Lynn Die, and the second is the ivory textured cardstock that was used for the main image. I'm using double-sided tape to attach the layers. This is the Sellotape brand, and I find it easier if I only partially remove the tape because it gives me something to hold on to whilst I'm positioning the layers, and it is also easier if you don't quite line things up correctly. It's easy enough to take it off and reposition. For the main body of my cards, I like to select a heavier weight cardstock, so I've chosen 325 GSM smooth white cardstock by Taffeta. Here I'm using a stamp positioner to align a text stamp that I put onto the back of all my cards. It's a stamp by Judakins that was gifted to me by my friend Laurel, and it reads, "This is an individually crafted work of art. Any smudges, splotches or other irregularities are intentional and do not diminish the quality of this piece in any way." And once I've finished stamping the back, I'm using the double-sided tape again to attach the card to the base. Now I want to create an insert for the card, so for this I'm using a Spellbinders die. This is label 17, and I've selected the same colours of distress ink that I used for the outside of the card, so I'm beginning here with the Wild Honey, and later I'll add some detail with the Seedless Preserves, and then some stamping for the sentiment using the VersaFine Onyx Black. The sentiment is going to be taken from this stamp set by Inkadinkado, and this particular set is called Scary Nights. Again, I'm using the stamp positioner and, as already mentioned, the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. To make the insert a little more decorative, I'm going back to the Halloween Charms stamp set, and I've chosen a spider web and the Seedless Preserves distress ink for stamping. For continuity of the design, I'm taking the Stampin' Up! Splattered stamp that was used on the outside of the card and also using that on the insert. And finally, I'm taking a piece of Ranger Cut and Dry foam and edging the card with some of the distress ink in Seedless Preserves. And now the card is finished. There will be a link to the full product list in the video description, as well as my social media links, and hopefully you'll tune in tomorrow to see the second card in this 7-day series. Thanks for watching.